What if I told you that fragments, physical traces of Noah's Ark may have just been discovered, not on the slopes of Ararat as most imagine, but somewhere far more surprising? What if these fragments challenge everything we thought we knew about the Ark's location, its preservation, and even how this story bridges scripture, archaeology, and prophecy watchers? In this journey, we will walk the line between faith and inquiry. We will examine recent scientific claims, compare them with what the Quran teaches, and ask, could prophecy be whispering through these discoveries? But always with humility and caution. For Muslims, the story of Noah is not myth to be debunked or exalted. It is a reminder, a test, and a warning. If you believe in exploring deep questions, consider subscribing and enabling notifications. You won't want to miss future episodes as we delve into science, history, and the miraculous. For centuries, the story of Noah's Ark has captured imaginations across faiths and cultures. In the Bible, the narrative of Genesis tells of a world gone astray, and a vessel built to preserve life from divine floodwaters. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent end to a stubborn people, warning them, and only a remnant were saved by the flood. But while the story is powerful in scripture, physical evidence has remained elusive. Many attempts have aimed at Mount Ararat in modern Turkey. But the new claim I present today relocates the search, and perhaps the discovery, to a place unexpected, backed by soil chemistry, ground-penetrating radar, and patterns no geologist easily dismisses. Why should believers care? Because if fragments are real, they may strengthen faith, provoke reflection, or at least sharpen the lens through which we view signs in the earth. And for skeptics, they offer an open question rather than an easy dismissal. In mid-2025, a research team known as Noah's Ark Scans announced that they had conducted fresh ground-penetrating radar, GPR, surveys and soil sampling at a boat-shaped formation near the Durupınar site in eastern Turkey, approximately 18 miles south of Mount Ararat. Here's what they claim to have seen. A 13-foot tunnel traversing the center of the formation, as revealed by radar imaging. 3 distinct subterranean layers, which the team likens to the 3 decks described in Genesis 6 verse 16, the lower, second, and third decks. Angular rooms or side corridors, possible hallways extending from the central axis. Right angles that, the team asserts, are unlikely to form in purely natural geological structures. Soil chemistry anomalies. Inside the formation, significantly higher organic matter, higher potassium content, and lower pH than surrounding soil. These are argued to be consistent with rotting wood or decayed organic material. Vegetation differences. The grass or plant life within the boat-shaped structure appears a different color, possibly reflecting underlying distinct soil makeup. Before jumping to conclusions, we need to ask, how do these findings match what Scripture says, both the Bible and the Quran? In Genesis 6 verse 16, the Bible describes, "Make a roof for the ark and finish it to a cubit above, and set the door of the ark in its side. Make it with lower, second, and third decks." This passage gives a 3-level structure, which is part of the reason the radar team sees a match in their 3 distinct layers. But how do Muslims view Noah's Ark in the Quran? The Quran narrates the story in multiple places, most notably in Surah Hud and Surah N. In Surah 71, Allah speaks of sending N to warn his people. "Surely we sent N to his people, saying, Warn your people before there come upon them a painful chastisement. Obey me, serve Allah alone." The Quran also refers to N's invocation and deliverance. "And N had certainly called upon us, and we are the best of responders. And we saved him and his family from the great affliction." Quran 37:75, 76. The terms used. The Quran uses Safina, a ship, in Surah 29:15, Fulk, boat, in Surah 7 hours 64 minutes, and says, "a thing of boards and nails" in Surah 54:13. While the Quran does not provide architectural detail or precise dimensions, it affirms that the ark was indeed a ship-like structure, built by N at divine guidance, to save believers from a divine flood. One important theological nuance. The Quran does not specify precisely where the ark landed. The classical Muslim tradition often identifies Mount Judy, in present-day Iraq/Turkey border region, as the resting place, based on exegetically sources. Thus, If a site near Ararat or Durupinur shows promising signs, some believers will see it as potentially aligning with scriptural tradition, though never strictly guaranteed. As with any extraordinary claim, there is robust skepticism. Scholars, geologists, archaeologists, and skeptics rightly caution against leaping from anomalies to sensational declarations. Mainstream geology and archaeology tend to classify many ark-hunting efforts as pseudoscience or pseudo-archaeology. The Wikipedia page on searches for Noah's Ark notes that despite many expeditions, no credible physical remains have been verified. Geological processes, especially in volcanic or sedimentary zones, can sometimes produce linear, angular, or layered features that mimic man-made forms. Critics argue the Durupinur Formation may be a natural limonite ridge or ridge of mineral deposits shaped by erosion and fossil processes. Radar and soil anomalies on their own are not the same as extracting dating material or finding preserved wood or artifacts. Without physical cores, reliable carbon dates, or direct wood remains, the case remains speculative. Even if the Ark existed, after thousands of years, decomposition, tectonic activity, erosion, and other forces make survival of recognizable wood or structure exceedingly unlikely. Researchers themselves admit they do not expect a fully preserved vessel. Some scholars note that global flood claims are incompatible with current geological, hydrological, and climatological evidence. The vast scale required would leave multiple signatures globally, but these signatures are lacking. And finally, it is possible that researchers, looking for an ark, may unconsciously interpret ambiguous features as structural. Correlation does not mean causation. Because of these reasons, the mainstream scientific community does not accept any ark claims as conclusive. So where does that leave the believer, the inquirer, the person who wants to hold faith and reason together? Recognize that Scripture is primary. The Quran gives us moral, spiritual, and historical guidance. Physical evidence, while compelling, must never override revelation. Understand that signs can point but need not convert. As Muslims, we expect Allah to hide some signs as tests. Some believe prophecy watchers will see signs, but some believe is a safer framing. Do not assert certainty. The Quran reminds us to reflect on the past peoples who were destroyed for rejecting their prophets. Allah causes lessons to remain in history as reminders, not as trophies. Even if the fragments are genuine, they are not proofs that end doubt. They are pieces of a much larger divine tapestry. Thousands of years ago, a lone man named En stood among a people steeped in disbelief. He warned, he preached, he built an ark at divine command. And when the flood came, only he, his family, and the creatures aboard survived. That story echoes in the Bible, the Quran, and the minds of millions. But for centuries, truth seekers have asked, where is that ark today? Many have looked to Mount Ararat. Many have speculated, dreamed, and even claimed discoveries. Yet none have yielded indisputable proof. Until now, or so some believe. In 2025, a group calling itself Noah's Ark Scans announced new findings at a formation near Durupinur, Turkey, some 18 miles south of Ararat. Using ground-penetrating radar and soil chemistry, they claim to see a 13-foot central tunnel, 3-layered decks, angular corridors, and anomalous soil consistent with decayed organic matter. The shape aligns with biblical dimensions, and the soil inside is richer in potassium and organic content, with lower pH. Outside, conditions differ. Vegetation differs in color. Could this be part of the ark? To take that step, we must compare to Scripture. Genesis 6 verse 16 describes a 3-deck vessel with a roof and a side door. The radar team claims their layers mirror this design. The Quran, for its part, does not give architectural detail but confirms that En built a ship of boards and nails, a safina or fulk, to deliver believers from a great flood. Yet there is no verse in the Quran that ties the ark to a particular mountain or guarantees that physical remains will survive for millennia. The tradition of Mount Judy is strong in Islamic exegesis, but the new site near Ararat is not necessarily in conflict. Nevertheless, the skeptics raise serious objections. Geological forces can mimic structure. No excavation or core sample has been publicly dated. the odds of survival of wood over thousands of years are slim. Many past Ark expeditions collapsed under scrutiny, labeled pseudo-archaeology. Researchers themselves are cautious, only claiming possible evidence, not proof. Their next steps include deeper scans, core drilling, comparative soil tests, and cross-disciplinary review. Still, the idea that fragments might exist is powerful. For believers, such traces can inspire awe without demanding belief. For skeptics, they are puzzles to solve or dismiss. So I ask you, could these be fragments of old NS ship? Could prophecy watchers see in them a sign of the last days? Or is this merely a geological curiosity clothed in imagination? Whatever the case, our faith does not rest on bones or wood. Our certainty comes from Allah, His revelation, and submission. But our curiosity pushes us to dig deeper, and to remember that truth is often stranger and grander than any archaeological find. If you want us to follow future Ark discoveries, soil tests, scans, debates, subscribe now and ring the bell. Together, we will walk the line where faith meets inquiry. A sweeping aerial shot of the Unearthed Formation at dawn. Overlaid maps showing locations. Ararat, Unearthed, Mount Judy. Radar visuals fading in to show tunnels and layers. Split screen. Biblical verses and Quranic verses side by side. Close-ups of soil lab work, scientists sampling. Interviews of lead researchers Andrew Jones, William Crabtree. Graphics comparing soil inside versus outside. Dramatic questions posed to camera. Is this ship a sign? Fade-outs with verses or warnings from Quran. Closing with a reminder. Faith needs signs, but not solely on them. Genesis 6 verse 16. Make a roof for the ark. Make it with lower, second, and third decks. Quran, Surah 71 n. verses 1 to 4. Surely we sent N to his people. Quran, Surah 37:75, 76. And N had certainly called upon us, and we saved him and his family from the great affliction. Quran, Surah 29:15/7 hours 64 minutes/54:13. Referring to Safina, Fulk, a thing of boards and nails. And the verse about signs in the earth. Do they not travel through the earth and see how was the end of those before them? Quran 30:9. These verses should be used to reflect, not to force a conclusion. Some might ask, if these are fragments, why hasn't wood been extracted and carbon dated yet? What if the anomalies are natural? How do we reconcile global versus local flood interpretations? Could this distract people from the spiritual core, faith, worship, moral reform? The answer is humility. The researchers are planning careful, minimal-impact drilling and tests. Natural explanations must be tested too. Some Muslim scholars see the flood as global, though some modern thinkers argue local. And the spiritual message of N is timeless, whether or not physical fragments survive. We began this journey asking, they just unearthed Noah's Ark fragments, and it's not where you think. We have seen a dramatic claim, faith-based caution, scientific skepticism, and the tension between proof and prophecy. Maybe we will never know conclusively in this lifetime. But the beauty of such discoveries is not certainty. They are invitations. Invitations to ponder, to believe, to inquire, and to humbly place trust in what is unseen. If you believe in exploring signs with dignity, subscribe now. Share your thoughts in comments. Do you think this is part of the Ark? Do you think prophecy watchers are paying attention? Which sites should future searches target? May Allah guide us to truth, protect us from error, and help us see signs where they are meant to be seen. Not for sensationalism, but for awakening. Thank you for watching. If you found this exploration valuable, share it. And until next time, keep your hearts open, your minds aware, and your purpose clear.